We're live. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in today. If you are surviving the storm, we are thinking of you, of course. Lucky today to have Colleen Yeager from Quinn Residences. Colleen and I met back in the fall. I think I was in Atlanta. We also met in Dallas, I think, as well, right? A couple times.
Yep.
Awesome. And a number of conversations. Thrilled to have, I'll say, your candor, your conviction around candor and bluntness is a wonderful gift that you have, and it's incredible to have conversations with Colleen, and we kind of got on forever talking about this and that, and now here we are, get a chance to chat with everybody and share a conversation with everyone. So, like we talk about all the time, getting to hell yes. So Colleen's the CEO of Quinn Residences, and so a lot of COO. Sorry, Richard.
Richard Ross is the CEO.
CEO of Quinn Residences. Sorry, Richard. You just look out, Richard. She's coming. CEO of Quinn. And a lot of the things that we talk about is about getting to hell yes and how things sell and how you attract your customer and closing that customer. Now, in the business that Quinn's in, the product does a lot of the talking. The experience, the resident does a lot of the talking. And that certainly helps drive a lot of the reliability for what you're trying to deliver from a resident experience. That keeps people buying, keeps people talking, keeps people always engaged. We'll talk a little bit about that today. And certainly talking through how operations, we're really at a moment right now in, I'll say, all property management, where operations has a huge part in the revenue drivers of the organization. It's been somewhat overlooked over the last 5, 6, 7 years, but now operations is front and center in how this whole industry makes money. And it's great to see that kind of profile surface. And it drives those hell yes conversations where you can have 2 units, exact same unit, but the operations are totally different. The one that has the better orientation for success, those ones are selling, those ones are renting, closing. And those are the ones that are keeping the residents inside the units, where we're having better NOI across the whole board for that organization. So we'll get going in a second here, but getting to hell yes, why this show exists. The show exists so we can get a chance to dig deep into why buyers buy. In this case, we're talking largely about renters, how renters choose, or we've been using the word home seekers lately, how home seeker chooses to choose where they choose to live, why they choose that, what kind of things they consider, what kind of objections you might get, all those things, and how we architect a great experience for our customers over and over again, so we can have a repeatable sale that helps drive our businesses and grow them from a repeatability and reliability perspective, so we can begin to grow and really serve the needs of our customers in a way that is easy for both us as service providers and easy for them as consumers of our services. This is brought to you by IRCX. IRCX is AI remote maintenance and inspection software for property management, and make it super easy for you to take a look at the problem prior to dispatching a truck, scope inspections remotely or on site, or even self-led, and scope resident issues self-led. We've been a really busy week this past week, onboarding a ton of our customers in both the PM space, the inspection space, and the restoration, and in the maintenance space. So, if you have any questions around that, shoot me a DM. If you're sitting around waiting for the everything to unthaw, I'd love to help you out and get things going. So, folks listening, we'd love to get your engagement throughout. It makes things a whole lot easier. And as always, we pass it off to Colleen right away. And we're going to ask you a quick question around, how did you get here? A bit about your background, Colleen. How did you get in this role? And what's the problem that Quinn, how do you define the problem that Quinn is solving for your customers?
Well, first how I got here is I started in college as a leasing consultant. Wasn't knowing what I was going to do, and I grew up and finished my degree. And I went back to Miami and started with Trammell Crow Company in multifamily. Moved along into Equity Residential, who, quite honestly, had they not sold out of South Florida, I'd still be with that company. It's a great company, great culture. Learned a lot there. I've been blessed with some really good mentors. I've had amazing teachers and leaders, people with patience, people that share the knowledge and share the spotlight. And I've been able to embrace that as a leader. So after Equity, I followed Bruce Levine over to Invitation Homes, and that's where I got my feet wet with scattered single-family homes. Merger happened. Everybody knows that in the business, mergers and buyouts, people move around a little bit. So, I was kind of semi-retired, and Richard Ross came knocking, and I was fascinated by it. I'm like, we're building communities of rental, and they're not multifamily, they're not apartments. So, you know what I said to him, Guillermo? I said, hell yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So I left 6,500 homes to 13 and built my way up with Mr. Ross and with the Quinn family. I've been here since COVID, which is 2020, and started with 13 homes, and now we're at around 5,000, and always looking to grow. And it's been an amazing journey and learning experience for me. The biggest factor that I have that I've learned is the internalization of our management. No disrespect to third-party management teams, but I will say nobody manages better than an owner. So bringing it in-house gave us so much more visibility into our data, our demographics, what our residents were looking for, what they weren't looking for. So, because, you ask a resident what they need, and they're not shy, and you just have to listen and make those decisions around that. So now we sit and we're continuing to build and lease up, and we have 14 properties now in our core, which is either stabilized or same home going into 2026. And, we'll see what goes from here.
When Richard first, so those of you that know Richard, he's extremely congenial, like just an incredible conversationalist, and I won't go as far as saying persuasive, because I hope there might be a negative connotation to that, but he's extremely convincing, right? So when he chatted with you about this idea, you're running 6,500 homes for invitation, and he says, I want to build did you say horizontal apart? How do you phrase it? Because the word build-to-rent wasn't invented yet.
No, was it? It might have been. I have to think about that. He says, we're building a company. We're building it from the dirt up, which I love the construction side of the business. My father was a GC, so I was always on a construction site as a kid. So did a lot of construction work with equity, and just enjoyed that side, so we're building it from the dirt. So, my first year, all I did was fly around and look at dirt and, call back to Douglas and the acquisition team and go, are you all crazy? There's cows everywhere. Or, wow, this is a home run. It's 20 minutes from Charlotte. So my first year was really just, boots on the ground and looking at dirt and trying to understand where we're going to build and where the growth is going to be. When you get in front of Starbucks and you get in front of Chick-fil-A, that was our Drayton deal over in Pooler, which is in Savannah, Georgia. When they build after us, that's when you built in the right spot. And quite honestly, I chase Publix. If I go out to look at dirt and I see Publix within 3 miles of one of my sites, I'm like, okay, they know something. We're following them. So, you got to look around. You got to get on the dirt.
So how do you mean by chase Publix?
Publix is a shopping. It's a
shopping
grocery chain. And they do a lot of marketing about what's happening with demographics in an area. And if you see a Publix going up, they've done their numbers. They know their homework. So that's usually a sign of health in a marketplace.
When you first, did you get a chance to meet those 14 families that first moved into the first 14 homes along the way?
No. We were third-party management back then.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I forgot about that part of the journey. So you guys were third-party managers for how long?
We've been internalized for about 2.5 years now.
Okay.
So about half and half. We had several. We had split it up between a couple companies and trying to understand who does what best. What avenues they use, learn from their mistakes, kind of thing. And once we got big enough, I think we came internalized. We had about 15 fully developed communities, either under lease up or stabilized. And we said, I think we can do this. And I think the numbers are going to pencil. And, and then we just went from there. So here we are. With,
so did you backfill the homes you're managing, or did you eventually, they just set themselves along the way organically, or like all those other clients that you had to eventually, now are you 6,000 homes all?
No. We had third-party managing our assets, managing our communities. And then we brought it in-house and we managed our own portfolio.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. So what was that? So then at that time you're trying to grow the company, and you're realizing that there's a gap, and you got all of your properties are being fee managed, and there's like, how did that feel? Because going internal, was that always the plan? And it was until
Yes.
it was economical. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. It was always the plan. When you asked how Mr. Ross got me, that was one of the things. You can build your management company, you can build your team, you can build your platforms. I assure you, I know more today about this than I did 3 years ago when I started internalizing. Sure. So a lot of lessons learned, brought in some strong talent. Yeah. I had an old boss say, always hire people that are better than you and know more than you in certain areas. And I certainly have, and have a lot of bench strength around me, which is making us successful.
So when you look at the renters that you guys, the residents that you guys serve, the home seekers, right? They have a lot of options on their plate, and this has been a lot in the news lately around options that are available, optionality for home seekers. Like, but you guys are successful in what you're doing, and you're delivering I'll say over and above what they may have originally anticipated or expected, just given the numbers and the growth numbers and where you guys are and the success you guys have had. When you hear about your residents, like, what's the problem that they're seeking to solve? Like, how do they articulate their choice to go choose Quinn versus all the other alternatives that are out there?
Well, if you're speaking alternatives of buying versus renting, we like to think of our renters by choice, which means they basically can afford to buy a house if they wanted to, but they want the flexibility. We have the older profile that, quite honestly, doesn't want to take care of their home anymore. And my mother is in a large home, actually the home I grew up in, and it's a pain in the ass. So these residents come in and they give a big shout out, hell yes, I don't need lawn, work. I have, the electronics and maintenance free, and we take care of everything. So I think that's a big driver in that older demographics, which I'm one of them now. And then you have the younger crowd that, they don't know that they're going to be in Atlanta more than 3 years. And, they're juggling, I don't want to be in a 30-year mortgage. And, it gives them the flexibility to, well, now I'm going to be in Tampa, or I'm going to be in Charlotte. We run the Sun Belt, so we give a lot of options there. But to help them decide, it's, you have to build what the resident wants. And, they want free maintenance lifestyle, don't want to deal with it. The younger do not want to, and neither does the older profile. So anything over 100 doors, I don't think we'd build anything lower than 100 doors, but anything under 100 doors, we always have a dog park. We always have a playground. All of our homes are fenced in. 40% of our residents have pets. We have more pets than we have children, which is very interesting. So you have a lot of, it's good information to know. When I first started putting fences in, is this necessary? And it ended up being really necessary and a driver to the demand of our customer. And you have to listen to that customer. And I'm sorry, when they bring more dogs and they bring kids, that fencing is pretty darn important. So I would say 99% of our homes have fencing. If they don't, it's because of some grading issues behind the house. So
I think I remember talking, I think it was Mr. Ross that was talking about amenities at Nashville, BTR Nashville last March, talking about how it was number one amenity out there, with respect to driving demand for the doors. And it's kind of funny when you talk about amenities in the home, in the also the single family BTR world, because it's not the same kind of amenities you think of things in multifamily, right? But they are revenue drivers.
They are revenue drivers. And, when you speak to what they're looking for, we do surveys with our residents. And I got to tell you, the fenced yards and the on-site maintenance, they know the maintenance people more than they know the office people. So, again, lesson learned from 3 years ago, bringing it in-house, I kept saying, wow, we need people on site, which you do. But the maintenance team is what they really embrace. It's fascinating. And the maintenance team knows our residents. They know their kids, their dogs' names. It's pretty cool, actually.
Well, they're kind of they're like an operations concierge, right? In many cases, like they go beyond. I mean, the folks that I've met in the BTR communities, they go beyond just to respond to a work order approach to things and the kind of the annual inspection. They're certainly there to help you make sure that you enjoy the asset that you're renting. And so they're much like the best thing to say is a concierge or a dorm. Oh, you still there? The concierge or a dorm
I actually lost you.
Another type of asset, right? And that's kind of a unique approach to understanding maintenance as.
Guillermo, you're breaking in and out.
Still there?
Yeah, you're breaking in and out. You're breaking in and out because I'm live. I'm hardwired. Yeah. You have a snowstorm coming up there?
Let's just do this. No, it's beautiful here. Let's see this. All right.
Yeah, because it's beautiful.
I'm good now. How are you doing?
It's gorgeous in Atlanta today. Cold, but it's nice.
Well, this is always fun. Let me just try and close some things down.
I call this first world problems. We'll be fine.
How's that? Better?
Yeah, you're frozen. You're totally frozen on me.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes. Frozen?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just.
Am I frozen to you? Because I don't look frozen to me, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Let me just quit this.
Yeah, you're very, very choppy. Oop, I lost him. Okay. Well, it seems we're still live, so we can talk about a couple things while Guillermo's trying to figure out his internet. That's fine with me. Anybody has any questions, they can chat. We can talk a little bit about specs and how we've changed the specs of our homes. For a more maintenance-free lifestyle. We don't put any carpet in anymore. We only did on the first job, learned that real quick. We removed all the carpeting from the stairwells in addition to that. And it really makes the turns a lot easier. We try to turn the homes so that they're new again, right? Because one of the driving factors is, moving into a new house. Nobody's ever lived there again. So one of the things we definitely try to do is, turn the home so it's like nobody's ever lived there again. And that's a very attractive capabilities of our on-site team and attractive to our customer. So we don't have sliding glass doors anymore. We have standardized doors. We have solar on most of our southern communities and planned for most of our southern communities with the exception of North Carolina, kind of working through that. We already talked about the fenced yards. It's important. And of course, the smart technology, that's just expected. We have doorbells. We have ring bells. I just kept talking. It says I'm live, so I just kept going.
This never happened in 150 shows, so I appreciate it was you because you were able to carry the room. Well, that was interesting. I don't know.
That's all good. I kind of talked about specs and how we've changed our specs and
wonderful. That's part of the conversation, right? I mean, so when I was unceremoniously disconnected, we were talking about your maintenance folks, and we're chatting about how like the BTR community. I think in order to deliver that experience, you have the product that you're able to manage and deliver, that you curate, and then ultimately the experience that's enabled by those maintenance folks, the on-site teams. And the interesting thing that I keep hearing about in BTR world is these on-site teams. They're such an impactful part of that resident experience because of what you described. They're kind of like a concierge for the community, and they help enable and coordinate that whole community in addition to keep the asset up and running. And but that on one hand, and the other hand is it's really hard to find people that can do both those things, both the maintenance pieces, in addition to being a congenial personality on the community. How do you guys manage to find those people?
Well, we have a pretty good reputation so far, and it seems like we have a pool of people that'd like to come work for us. And most of our new hires are coming from multifamily. And I've asked them, how does it feel? What is it different? And they say you just interact with the residents more. Which is interesting, because I would have thought it would have been reversed with the apartment communities. Yeah. But one of the things I mentioned while you were playing internet is is that our maintenance teams on site are so engaged with our residents, that 95% of our work orders are completed by our in-house teams. We don't call a vendor out unless we have to, unless something's under warranty. Our guys are in and out of those homes all the time. And that builds that relationship. These residents know that they're going to be in their homes. They know their names, and it's important. It also helps, with the retention of the resident. We want to keep the resident happy, and we want to keep them as long as they want to stay and need to stay. So that relationship with our maintenance team is very important.
Like when you take a look at the multifamily model and the single family model, and now this hybrid of BTR that you guys are doing, like, does it kind of feel like it's filling a huge gap in the market? Like when you consider affordability, you consider the age of it, like you mentioned, the barbells of like people who are either on the more vintage side of things, or maybe they're starting their family as they're starting it out. Like, it feels like this is a no-brainer. Like this should be, like we should be like, doing whatever it can to build more BTR communities to enable this kind of a lifestyle that people are seeking so much.
I think it's a matter of educating the public, right? A lot of times we'll build and people don't even know we're for rent. We're single family homes with 2-car garages and driveways and an amenities section. It's really educating the local, and that takes grassroots marketing, right? Here we go to the office team and our sales team, and they do grassroots marketing. They go out and they meet HR departments. They go to businesses, BMW, whatever might be around that particular property, and we have to get the word out, because 5 years ago this was not even known. In terms of segueing between multifamily and scattered site, I call our dedicated rental community, which is, by the way, our BTR, we call it dedicated rental community at Quinn. Right. I call it a multifamily on steroids, because that's what it is. We function somewhere between the scattered site and the multifamily site as far as how we manage our communities. But it is different. It's an amazing feeling that somebody can live in a home and not a 2-bedroom apartment, for close to the same rent. Our rents range, middle of the road, $2,175, $2,200. And those are for full 3 and 4-bedroom homes and with good specs, not cheap, Formica and crappy specs. These are nicely built homes. I'd love for anybody to go look at them, quite honestly, because I'm very proud about what we've built, not only on the management side, but on the construction side as well.
Well, I think that, like, when you get into the vertical integration of owner operator, right, but also speccing out the development, like that rarely happens in multifamily. And so you're able to spec out the development, spec out the product, as you were mentioning while I was suffering through downtime, spec out how you're going to manage it, spec out, it's a designed experience end to end. It
is. And you stand in a home and you're like, wow, that was really stupid. We shouldn't have done that. And then we don't do it again. Right. Yeah. The first clubhouse we built, I walked through and I'm like, wow, the manager's office is too small. This is too small. We should have done this differently. And then we were able to, take that into the next development deal that we did. So we learned from our own lessons. We also learned from going to the competitor, and we see things we like and go, wow, that would be really cool to do. Or as you would say, hell yeah, we're building a dog park like that. So
well, you think about the data that's demonstrating, like, when you take a look at your buyers, right, they have certain attributes to them. You've got more pets than kids, right? And so, like, that is something you need to allocate for and consider, because that's the kind of person that's part of your persona for who you're building for. And
absolutely. And you have to think about the down the road expenses, right? The controllable expenses in your margins is we build for our residents, but we also build for our investors. So let's keep that clear, right?
Yeah.
So we look for ways of how can we build resilient amenity products. So our dog parks now have this artificial turf that feels real with a sprinkler enzyme system. So we don't remulch that every year. It's going to sustain. It's sustainable. Our playgrounds now have this really cool, of course, environmental friendly flooring that is glued down, and it's soft to the touch. It's bizarre, but we're never going to have to replace it again. So we're looking into sustainability with our amenities as well. How can we build things better? How can we not spend that mulch money or the pine straw or whatever it may be down the road? I'm always thinking, what is this going to cost 3 years down the road to my margins? What is this going to cost 5 years down the road to my margins? So again, we're learning from our own lessons.
How long in your and for your units, how long does it take before you have to do a full turn, like a full renovation style turn that you would do in SFR?
Well, we're too new to have to renovate our homes, so it's just a paint, punch, and clean.
Yeah.
So, no, we've had a fire unit and we had to do that. But that's an extreme. But we're nowhere near. I mean, we have granite and quartz countertops and stainless steel appliances, and we don't have to do any of that. We average between like $800 and $1,200 on our turns, somewhere around there.
Like a good friend of mine, he owned a bunch of franchises of Aaron's Appliances, and Aaron's Appliances was a franchise. It was for rent appliances, for rent furniture. And when he would talk about, looking at the furniture that they would lease out, the appliances they would lease out, they're very they weren't all the razzle dazzle. It was very straightforward in terms of how the appliances and the furniture is built. One thing he observed, he said, what's incredible is that we have our upholstery is double the amount of staples, our this and that. Like we'd use extra thickness in terms of the quality of our fabrics and all these things that are built for resilience that you wouldn't want to pay for if you were a consumer, because you wouldn't consider owning something that long with the wear and tear. Wear and tear wouldn't be a priority for you, right? Because you're thinking of maybe as aesthetic or personality or whatever. When you take a look at the way that a lot of BTR homes are described, is this built for resilience and sustainability, but the whole community is, rather than having, because the worst thing that anybody wants, we don't want work orders. We want less work orders. And so to be able to build something that is ultimately more robust of a home seeking experience, or a resident experience that is a more robust reality, is going to put a lot more predictability into what it's going to cost to own these things. And that allows you to build a better resident experience, because anybody that says it's customer experiences, we really just don't want things to go wrong. I want you to meet the promise and just don't want things to go wrong. And so if you're able to kind of control the community, control the unit, control the age of that unit, control the type of materials, products. We were talking earlier about carpet versus LVP, the kind of things that are inside the units, so that it becomes very robust from a materials perspective. That makes for a very predictable resident experience. And you just don't see that in a lot of other things. So
I have two comments on that. One, you have to get it right to begin with, just like you just said. That resident experience from day one when they move in is paramount to how long we're going to retain them and how their mind is set about their home and our team. We have to show them how to turn off the water. We have to show them how to reset a GFI. You have to show them how things work. It is a house. It is not an apartment. It is a house. So that original move in, you got to get it right to begin with, or first of all, they have a bad taste in their mouth. And second of all, they don't know how to do stuff in the house. So that's crazy. So that's number one. Number two, when we can, other than we had some supply chain issues, I think in 2021, 2022. We try to have all the same faucets. So, my MSA in Greenville, that whole team should only carry, I'm just making this up, a Delta faucet, whatever that spec may be. So they're not having to figure out, oh, what do I put in? No, you put in this. You have a spec sheet, put in it so it stays that way. So I think having consistent materials within a market to help the maintenance team, keep that product new is also important, as the amenities are. So with the spec.
So when a resident moves in, do you guys show, I mean, like, so when I bought a house, no one showed me how to use it. You gotta kind of figure it out. There's still parts of my house I've been in for 7 years I still don't know how to use. But like, do you guys take a tour of the house and show them how to use it? Is that how that works?
Absolutely. Yeah. Can I say it's 100%? No, but they hell yeah better damn well be. How about that?
Yeah,
That
I
is
love it.
critical. I'll shout out to Teresa Steen on she's the SVP. She runs the operations for Quinn. I will tell you, I am sure she is forcing that because she understands the importance of that walkthrough. I live in an apartment up here in Buckhead, and they walked me through that apartment, and I was so impressed. I called her immediately. I was like, "Oh my God!" They showed me every gadget in this apartment. So that is very important, and that's funny, Guillermo, because I've been in my house 8 years, and I got to tell you, there's parts of it that I'm like, "What the hell does this switch go to?"
Oh, I know. All I know is that in our center, like our rack, I've got more wires coming in than I've got going out in the house. So I don't. Somewhere in my walls, there's wires that they're just dead ended somewhere. I don't know why or how or what to even use them for. So how did you guys discover all of that? Like, was that like that the example of like of consolidating the different attributes of a product, of a home, the fence pieces, the resident experience, and the onboarding? Where did that all come from? Did you guys design that, or is that something you just kind of figured out along the way through 15 different properties, or how did you get to where you got to?
Well, I think on the fencing, we tested it on our first property, and that was Houndswood in North Carolina. And we put fencing in half of the property and not the other half of the property. We also build our pricing amenitized. So fencing has it's $100. I'm making that number up. If it doesn't, it's less 100. If you're on a quarter lock, it's $75. If you look over a lake, blah, blah, blah. We amenitize our pricing, and it's listed out. Yeah, and it is trial and error. You know, we had Savannah Lakes, Savannah property where we built some overhangs on the back porch, $10,000 probably plus or minus. And we sat back and said, what more can we get for this? Where is the demand? Is that something the resident wants? You know, and then you kind of step back and you look, do they rent faster? Is there pushback on the price? And then you say, wow, this really worked. So it is kind of trial and error. On the management side, I will tell you, I'm echoing. I will tell you that bringing in Teresa Steen, again, years of management experience, and she took the platform. She took my vision and my business plan. And I said, take what I've done and make it better. Take what I've done and make it better. Bring in the next level. And she has. I can't take credit for that. That is total team effort. And she has hired in some experts in property management. And our platform keeps getting just better and better and better as we go along. So
what's remarkable, what you guys have done, is that like you take a look at a lot of property management right now, and they're just kind of there's a whole new realization around customer experience. Like it's happening in 2026. Not happening in 2020, 2020, when you guys kind of start kicking things off. Like, and so it's kind of interesting to hear what you guys are doing and how you're kind of like seeing the results that you're seeing, and everyone's just getting it now. Now it's interesting because like a lot of the industry is all, fee managed versus owner operated and design, like develop, bolt it. We just call it bolt, build, operate, I forget, and then transition, build, whatever it was. But nonetheless, you guys are building it and you're operating it and you're owning it, the asset all along the way. That whole approach to managing the things is unique and drives different sort of behaviors around the relationship you have with revenue. Because if you're a fee manager, your relationship was with the client, but maybe not the revenue that comes from the resident, because you're kind of your arm's length from that first check. Do you think that's why everyone's like, why do you think that everyone is all of a sudden figuring out the resident experience is a priority? Like you guys design communities around it, experimented, all those things.
Well, the residents do not mind telling us what they need and what they want. And I'm sure, our competitors are listening. I had a property in Greenville, went around the corner, and they're building a property. I swear to God, looks exactly like ours. And I called Richard. I'm like, oh my God, this looks like our house. They have the exact same specs and the fencing. And, Richard's like, well, that's a compliment, Colleen. And I go, I am not complimented. I'm like, damn it, they stole my stuff. that it took me a long time to figure out. So, I think people watch which is fine. I do the same thing, especially on the amenity side, but, look to see what other competitors are doing and what's working and what's not. You have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to stand back and go, crap, that's not working. Let's do something different. So, and you just keep getting better by doing that.
Well, I think, and I don't want him to lose sight of this fact, is that but the desire to innovate, the desire to kind of experiment, to attach data to those innovations and experiments. You mentioned the porch, you mentioned the fences, you mentioned the views, like all those different sort of like pricing and revenue management elements that are in every single property that you can't go back on. You can't undo the porch overhang that cost $10,000 to build. And then how long is that going to take to recover $10,000 in incremental rent? Like that's a ton of money, right? And so like thinking about that is something I hope is not lost on the audience, is that in every case of, there's 45 million rentals out there right now, and experimentation isn't something that this business is known for, and testing and trying new things as it relates to the product is not what things are known for. There's a ton of amenities. It's well documented that the gym in every single multifamily unit is probably underutilized. It's very expensive amenity you'll pay for and don't get to use or don't normally use.
But it sells.
But it sells, right? Mm-hmm. And it goes on and on and on and on. But you guys are looking at delivering on the amenities that people, like a fence isn't like, it's hard to consider a fence as an amenity when you're thinking of things in terms of multifamily, because they're used to a gym or a pool or whatever. But you guys have built out these things that are amenitizing specific properties with features. I mean, I think of them as features almost, that features that can increase or modify the pricing. And that's just like that feature approach. You just never consider that or see that in a multifamily mentality, which I think is really special around where you guys are seeking to achieve from that hell yes perspective, is because you're designing that experience based on feedback from your residents. You're designing that spirit. You're seeking data to validate your hunches, your hypothesis statements, what people are telling you with experiments. And then you're taking those experiments and converting those into sustainable products. Like that is a technology life cycle. That is a product life cycle. That's not necessarily adopted. I mean, I don't know if people don't tell you this, but that's not necessarily adopted, generally speaking, when you're talking about the other 45 million rental or 44 million rental units are out there in the world today, or in the US today.
Well, in all fairness, amenitized pricing comes from multifamily. I mean, back in the day, you'd walk in, the third floor was, priced $35 higher, or, you'd have views and stuff like this. This takes it kind of to another level because we're building in front of, what we've learned from the past. My apartment right now, it doesn't have drawers in the bathroom. It's enough to make a person crazy. It's like, why would you build this? Now, if I had built that high rise, I would have noticed that and we wouldn't have done that again. So it's funny because I have a relationship with the manager. They know what I do. And I'm like, you have to get feedback like this. People have to know that this is like, they have to complain about it, And I find those conversations to be interesting because I usually get the deer in the headlight look. So
is it because you're more agile as a business? Like because you have agility around those different products that you build?
I think so. I mean, multifamily usually is just, this is what we built. This is what we built in the past. We're going to build it again. We know that 2 bedrooms are priced higher, blah, blah, blah. Our communities don't all look the same either. So, there's a feel around the amenity for the marketplace. We're building a property in Tampa, Moccasin Wallow, and the amenity, the design of the amenity is very Florida. The colors, the theme, the colors of the homes. It's very Florida feel. Whereas up in Gainesville, Georgia, or I should use Winder is better because that's a little bit more country. You have the furniture by the pool and the fire pits and things that are more northern Georgia, right? Whereas, I think sometimes multifamily forgets where they're at, where they're located, and, how to design around the resident that's going to be living in that market because they have a certain expectation. I think we underestimate our customers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that you're in a position right now, having architected for this, like when you architected it, the resident didn't have the same kind of power and control that they do today. Like they've got more choice than ever before, especially let's say the renter versus the home renter, the home seeker. And I got to think that you guys are in a power position when it comes to these sales conversations, because this is all you're known for, right? Like your notoriety in the market is around delivering on a resident experience and designing that from the very beginning, versus other ones, they've kind of fallen backwards into it. And then there's also the lack of homogeneous product that makes it really hard to manage. Like it makes it harder to manage.
Mm-hmm.
So you get kind of even more of a variable experience just by circumstance. And so when you guys get into the conversation of like a leasing for a resident or even targeting a market for a new product, the conversations must be very streamlined of like, because human beings, we want predictability. We want ease of use. We just don't want any problems.
I agree to that to an extent. I think that people like variety to some point.
Mm-hmm.
When I first, here's a lesson learned, I was like, oh, we only want 2 floor plans, make it easy for the salespeople. And that's not necessarily the truth. It's like, that's not what the prospect wants. They want options. Some people want I call it the mother-in-law quarters downstairs. It could be an office, whatever. And then the main living upstairs. And, you watch the demand and the supply within your own portfolio, and it tells you where they're gravitating to. It's not brain surgery. You just have to watch the data, follow the data, and it'll tell you what to build.
Well, and I think what's interesting, but then you take where you guys have more motivation than a fee manager is that you care about the end-to-end asset at the end of the day. You're not just curating the P&L, you're also curating the balance sheet for all these things.
That's
so
right.
You've got more of an attunement to that result set than maybe someone who's a fee manager, which makes for a different resident experience. I think I'm getting convinced right now that I understand now why we see more innovation coming from owner managers than fee managers. And I do empathize with fee managers because they have to go and they have to sell innovation twice. They've got to sell it internally within the fee management company, and then they've got to go sell it to a client to go agree to it. At which point, then they've got to deploy it to the resident. That's a lot of work for someone, who's got a tough job to do, and every job is tough.
Fee management is not for the light at heart. I can tell you that. That's a whole nother animal, and kudos and hats off to those that function within the fee management structure. Because you have different owners wanting different things. And, that's a different animal. It's my hat's off to anybody in fee management. Not an easy task. Yeah.
Well, and then I guess the challenge is that cascades down to the resident, which cascades to the hell yes, right? Because ultimately, if you want to kind of convey that promise or if you want to convey and deliver on the promise of where someone's going to live, you want to limit the things that you don't control.
Hey, I got to tell you, my first hell yeah moment for you is after we internalized. Okay. And I went to my first board meeting and they were asking me questions and I had my computer open. I go, hell yeah, I can give you that answer. I now own my data. I now can see everything live. And again, that was 2.5 years ago, almost 3. But, now I have so much data that I can build on because we own our own data. Before, it's kind of like I was almost fee managing my own stuff from afar. And it was very frustrating for an operator, very frustrating. So that was a hell yeah moment, owning my data and being able to track what our residents were doing and what was working and what wasn't. No question, pivotal moment at Quinn.
Interesting. People haven't talked about that too much, that the vertical integration of your data, and it also probably lends to the agility that you had, not to mention your mind, your kind of like just ability to control more of the levers, right? And there's no dilution of something where it comes into a monthly report and you just get the 14-page binder. It's actually like you're living and breathing it, engaging with it, touching it. You're able to kind of like experiment with it, all those things.
Yeah, I don't know if it's partly, that I was here from the beginning or our size, but it's very rare that I'm asked a question about one of our communities or at a board meeting, and I can't answer that question because we are very intimate to our business. Richard is very intimate to our business, as is the rest of the team. You know, we have a lot of proud people that work out in the field. They love working for this company. Richard has built a wonderful culture here. Culture is important. You know, I had a great culture at Equity. I can't say enough about that team there. And, you know, I feel it here too. And it's good. It's, you know, when you own your own stuff, which Equity does, you know, you almost, you invite that ownership of the teams out in the field. They know that Quinn owns this and they are helping the whole good. You know, people in the field make the money, Guillermo. I don't make the money. Nobody in this office makes any money. It is the employees in the field. It is the managers, the RSAs, the techs, and the supervisors, and their relationship with our residents. They are the ones that make the money in this company. They are the ones that keep the wheels turning. We are here to support them, period.
Do you find there's like a lack of connection? And I mean, when you talk to your peers in fee management and also in multifamily, like this is a much more like connected conversation than you get in a lot of multifamily conversations where it's assets, clients, customers, buildings, et cetera. Like, is it because your residents stay longer? Is it because it's end to end? Like, I mean, there's so many points that articulate this is a different animal than a hybrid of scattered site and multifamily, because everything is end to end designed. Like, how does that feel from a resident perspective? Like when they're shopping around and they're looking at alternatives, like, because they could look at a scattered site unit property, they could look at buying a home, they could look at a BTR community, and all those three different options that they have before them, you know, generic options, like they land on a Quinn home and a Quinn community. And the reason for that is, well, I mean, why do you guys find the reasons for that at the end of the day? Like, is it because there's so much, it's so reliable what they're about to buy? Like there's just, the maintenance is taken care of. Just summarize the conversation. Maintenance is taken care of. The community center exists. Someone's cleaned up the dog park. I don't have to worry about my maintenance. Like the pricing is fair or better. The amenities are all included. I don't have to worry about
transparent pricing. Very important. Yes.
And I don't need to worry about saving money for a furnace that's going to go out or something that's or AC unit, or if there's an ice storm and a tree falls in something. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I show up, I unlock my door, I go put my feet on the couch, and I chill out. That's it. Like, that's a pretty compelling offer.
100%.
It's almost crazy to think why people would not go for it. Like the not is almost like worth double clicking on. Like, why would you buy? Why would you take scatter site? Why would you choose all those other alternatives?
Well, sometimes that's school driven, right? Multifamily, I don't know if this is still the percentage, but back in the day, you only built 10% 3 bedrooms. So, you know, I don't think scatter sites gives you as much of a feel of community, right? You know, we do resident functions, we do, you know, contests, pet of the month, you know, decorate people love that kind of stuff. And, you know, who doesn't like to show off their dog? I do. Yeah. So I think maybe a sense of community is a little bit more on the dedicated rental communities versus scattered. Each has its own purpose. You know, one is not right or wrong. It's which one the customer prefers. You know, multifamily has a purpose. Not everybody needs a 3 bedroom. Some people want a 1. They get married, they go get a 2. The next thing you know, they have a kid. Boom. What do they need? They need a 3 bedroom. They come to me. Right? Yeah. So it's all cyclical. It's like it's the life cycle of a person, right?
Do you think that your customers, like that community you talked about, that sense of community, like we can kind of go nuts and bolts on it and kind of go feature to feature compared to like the scatter site or buying a home, but ultimately, is it the peace of mind of not having to worry, like where some people want to work? There are people out there that want to worry about that stuff. They want to worry about the fence putting up. They want to landscape it themselves. They want
Really?
Well, they do exist. They do exist. And they want to trim the trees. They want to do all that stuff. There's a product for them. But then the people that want to live in but they're, you know, and then there's those that they want to live in a scattered site unit where you kind of have this, you got that offer. I don't want to say anything about it. You got that offer. But what you're offering is, I don't need to worry about all these things. Plus, we're going to give you a sense of community.
Sense of community, sense of relationship with our teams, pride of ownership from our teams. You you're right about the fitness centers. I mean, we only build fitness centers where we have direct competition with multifamily. And I'll be curious, we haven't built one yet. It's going to be interesting. It could be a lesson learned because they are very expensive and they are underutilized. So it's going to be interesting to watch that as my next test. So we're testing out built-in closets right now. We're getting pricing, running ROIs. Are we going to put them in all of our homes? No, we're going to put one in a model home for that one person, that one woman that has more shoes than she knows how to count. And and I'm just making this number up, for $35 more, we're going to put this in your house. Pick this and we're going to build this in your house. It's a beta test. It might work. It might not, but we're able to test it. I just find it fascinating to understand the demand of the customer.
Where do you guys, because strictly because of curiosity of mine, where do you guys stand on food disposals?
Food disposal?
Like
what's a food disposal?
Yeah, exactly.
Trash removal?
No. The kitchen.
Oh, we have garbage disposals.
Incinerated garbage disposals. Everyone calls them differently.
We have garbage disposals. How do I feel about it personally?
Well, I've heard mixed. I've heard two things. It's the most expensive thing to maintain for what it delivers, but it's also a preventative maintenance approach. Whereas if you don't have that, your lines get clogged in the bottom underneath the house. So I don't know.
That's correct. That's an interesting question. So I would prefer not to have it, but then you have to rely on the resident not to shove a carrot down there and expect it to make it down the pipe. So.
That's true, right?
Yeah.
That's true.
Anyhow.
When you guys are out there talking to residents, like what kind of objections do you get? Like not everyone chooses, and how often do they ever convey their objections as to why they didn't go with the Quinn home?
One, it could be availability. Right. So they may go into a property that we only have 2 homes available. And, one is, the small bedrooms, 4 bedroom, which the bedrooms are too small. Some people like the 4 bedrooms too small because the husband and wife work from home and they have offices. Right. Yeah. So they go looking for something bigger. We might only have townhomes available. One of my favorite projects is where we have single family homes and townhomes on the same property. And it gives a price point. And it also gives options. So usually it's availability of what they're looking for. 2-car garages are a must. I mean, we know that for a fact now, and we build them wherever and whenever we can. So, I guess it depends. I mean, it depends on what the customer is looking for. I can't imagine somebody walks one of our homes and other than availability, them not wanting to rent with us versus, an apartment or something.
So it's just kind of feature and timing alignment.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Very cool. When you go back at your time, your duration, and again, I appreciate you suffering through the downtime we had today. So thank you for that. First, before I forget, when you go back at your career, what's kind of bit of advice you'd give yourself as you've kind of gone through and where you're at today? Like, you look back and what do I wish I knew then that I know now?
I don't think I was in tune with customer demands. I really don't.
Yep.
I think over the last 10 years, I have probably heightened my awareness of listen to your customer. They tell you how to be successful.
Mm-hmm. They do.
And listen to your team. I tell Richard all the time, I love being out in the field. Let me be out in the field because you learn so much from the teams. They love to talk to you. And I love being out there. It hypes me up so much. I love visiting communities and talking to the teams on site. And they're, of course, mortified when the residents walking by and I stalk them and go, hey, how do you like living here? So because you learn a lot by listening, I guess has been my biggest lesson over the last decade. Learn from listening.
I've had a similar, this past year I spent, always listening to customers. We listen to customers kind of like through Zoom calls and all those sort of things, but then going on site was a totally different experience. I learned so much more. I spent a ton of time this last year. 12 months. That's what
I'll leave you with, Guillermo. Learn from listening. Learn from listening.
So. 100%. And in person is different. You get different information when you're in person than when you're over.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Too many people hide behind the keyboard. Go have a conversation. So
yeah.
I thank you. I do thank you for having me on. It was quite interesting on the pause. I can't wait to go back and see it. I'm like,
Thank
what the
you.
hell do I do now? It's not a hell yeah. It's like, what the hell?
What the hell? Thank you for your patience on that. That's never happened before. I appreciate that. We got to ask you a question though. Who should we have on next?
I think you should have Peyton Harm on next. He is our VP of construction, and he can talk a little bit more in detail of what wonderful things we're building and the why behind it. I also think Teresa Steen, our SVP, he's a stud-S, as Richard says. He's a stud, and the different AI platforms and things that she's working on. I'm amazed by both of them. So either one of them would be a great choice.
Well, I'll reach out to both. Peyton and I have a chat coming up in the next week here, I think, anyways. So that'd be good to kind of poke him and I'll promise him that the probability of an outage happening mid-call, again, is very low, but you never know.
All good. Well, thank you, Guillermo.
You've been outstanding, Colleen. I tell you something, the journey that you've had, and again, you got to know that your experience around the data, the proximity to the customer, like to your buyer, the product, the control over the product you're building is a very unique experience of all the people I've spoken to. Because very few, even in multifamily, owner-operators very rarely build and design their own product, right? Get to experiment with amenities, and because amenities are difficult to experiment with. Like if you're building a gym, you don't just like experiment with a gym. You can experiment with fences and overhangs and all that stuff. It's very similar to building a technology solution. Like it's not unlike, there's almost more similarities that I've been able to capture from this conversation to building technology products or marketing products than versus like what multifamily talks about. And so it's interesting to kind of hear it with fresh ears in terms of how this relates to the resident experience you guys are driving. And then ultimately your points around listening to your customer and being on site, like there's just no match for hearing it directly from your customer in their environment, like not through a survey, not through a form or a contest, but actually having a conversation with somebody about their living unprompted, unscripted, unprepared, and you able to get the real stuff they're talking about, what they're struggling with. It's outstanding.
Thank you. It's been a wonderful ride. Been a wonderful
ride.
Hell yeah, go Quinn. Hell yeah, go Quinn.
Oh yeah. I can't wait to work closer with your team members. Well, thank you everyone for listening today. Thank you for having patience with us in a little bit of the mini outage there. I'm grateful, Colleen, you're able to do the what do you call it? The salt, the
stand
hello,
in.
my darling, hello, my darling, hello, my dear. The dance while I was gone. And thank you for listening. Again, this is brought to you by RCX. We're AI remote software for property management, help you see the problem before you dispatch your truck, or help you run inspections a whole lot quicker and faster. Thanks everyone for listening today. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. We'll get notified on that. We'll be able to respond to it. If you're listening to things on Apple or Spotify, just click like or subscribe, and we'll be able to get back to you. And that makes it easier to find it for everyone else to find the podcast. Thank you for listening today. Thank you, Colleen, for your time. This is super, super helpful, very insightful, and helps frame some things for me that I never thought of before. So thank you for that. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and stay warm if you're in the cold parts of the world. Take care.